She forged my name on a $14,000 loan, and I spent 6 months making absolutely sure she couldn't deny it. That's where this story ends up. But to understand what I actually did with that evidence, and why it ended up costing her so much more than $14,000, we need to go back. Back to a Tuesday morning in September when I opened a bank statement and felt the floor just drop out from under me. I didn't call a lawyer that day, didn't call the police, didn't even call her. I opened a spreadsheet. There's one moment, right near the end of all this, where I walked into a room carrying a single folder and watched 6 years of her professional life unravel in about 11 minutes. Something she said in that room has stayed with me. I'll get there. But first, you need to understand who Kayla was, and why none of this should have ever been possible. Kayla and I had been business partners for 3 years when this happened. We'd built a small marketing consultancy together from basically nothing. 2 laptops, 1 shared client, and a whole lot of late nights. By year 3, we were pulling in around $380,000 in annual revenue, split right down the middle. On paper, we were equals. In practice, we'd divided things cleanly. She handled client relationships, brought in new business, worked the room. I ran operations, contracts, finances, the part of the business nobody ever sees, but that falls apart completely without. That division of labor is going to matter. A lot. Just when everyone thought it was over, because I was the one who read every single document that came through our company account. Every invoice, every contract renewal, every bank statement. That was my world. We had a business line of credit at a regional bank. $20,000 limit. Nothing dramatic. We used it occasionally to cover payroll when a big invoice was slow to clear. I managed it personally, made the payments myself. The monthly statements came directly to me. Kayla knew that. She knew all of it. Here's what I knew about Kayla at that point. She was sharp, she was charismatic, and clients absolutely loved her. She held a professional license in communications consulting, the kind of credential that opens doors, the kind you really can't just replace. But in the months leading up to September, I'd started noticing something. She seemed distracted, a little stressed around the edges. She'd stopped asking about our financials in our weekly check-ins, started canceling one-on-ones. I noticed, but I told myself it was personal stuff. Everyone goes through phases, right? Then September came. I opened our monthly bank statement and something was immediately, obviously wrong. The balance on our line of credit had jumped from $2,000 to $16,000 in a single month. I sat very still for a moment, but the most shocking part is still coming. I hadn't drawn on it, hadn't authorized any draws. We hadn't even discussed any draws. I pulled up the transaction history and found one withdrawal. $14,000, processed 3 weeks earlier, signed off under my name. My name. My signature. Except I never signed it. I didn't call the bank, didn't call Kayla. I closed my laptop and just sat with it. A full 48 hours. Because I've learned the hard way that the worst decisions you'll ever make are the ones you make in the first hour after finding out something that makes you want to scream. So I didn't scream. I thought. On the day that $14,000 draw was signed and processed, I was in Chicago. I had a boarding pass, hotel receipts. 3 days of time-stamped client emails sent from a hotel business center 800 miles away. And the person who'd helped me pack my presentation materials the night before I flew out? Kayla. Nobody could have predicted what happened next. She knew exactly when I was leaving, knew how long I'd be gone. She knew the bank, knew our account, knew my signature well enough to attempt it. And I still didn't confront her. I know how that sounds, but think about what happens when you confront someone before you have everything. They deny it. Get defensive. They start making moves, calling the bank, calling a lawyer, deleting things, getting their story straight. The second Kayla knew that I knew, the window would start closing. So I made a deliberate choice. She doesn't find out until I'm ready for her to find out. What would you have done here, honestly? Because sitting across from someone every week, knowing what I knew, that took everything I had. Instead of confronting her, I did something that changed the entire outcome. And this is where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. I hired a forensic document examiner, a certified handwriting analyst with fully court-admissible credentials. But here's what was quietly happening underneath all of that. I'd spent those months consulting with an attorney, not just about the fraud itself, but specifically about Kayla's professional license. Because that communications consulting credential wasn't just a certificate on a wall somewhere. It was issued by a state licensing board, and that board had a formal ethics and conduct process for exactly this kind of situation. Here's what that actually meant. The $14,000 was painful but recoverable. Her license was not. And the firm she'd quietly taken on as a part-time consulting client while we were still partners, something she hadn't fully disclosed to me, that firm required clean licensing as a condition of her contract. Stay until the end, because the finale is absolutely wild. I had done my homework, every bit of it. That meeting happened on a Wednesday morning. I wasn't in the room, didn't need to be. But I found out what happened because the HR director actually reached out to me afterward to clarify a few details. And she told me how Kayla responded when they called her in. Kayla didn't deny it. Not entirely. She tried to reframe it, said it had been a miscommunication, said she'd intended to tell me, said the money was going to be paid back. She actually used the word miscommunication for a forged signature on a $14,000 loan. That was the moment I mentioned at the very beginning. That one word. Stay until the end because the finale is absolutely wild. Because here's what that word told the HR director, told everyone in that room. It showed them that Kayla's instinct when caught was to minimize, not to own it, not to explain, to call a forged signature a miscommunication. Can you believe that? After everything. The firm terminated her contract that same day. The licensing board concluded their investigation 4 months later. Her credential was suspended pending a formal hearing, and at the hearing, given the weight of the documented evidence, the suspension became a full revocation. She lost her professional license, and her husband, who, I later learned, had no idea where that $14,000 had gone, found out during the legal proceedings. The marriage didn't survive it. I want to be clear about something. I didn't set out to end her marriage, didn't contact her husband, didn't try to maximize the damage. I filed accurate reports with the correct institutions and let those institutions do their jobs. And this is where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. That's genuinely all I did. I've thought about this more times than I can count. The thing that protected me throughout wasn't anger, wasn't strategy exactly. It was just documentation. Every receipt, every timestamp, every piece of paper in the right folder in the right order. She handed me the evidence. All I did was organize it. After those 48 hours, I called the bank, requested the original loan draw authorization documents, and drove down to pick them up in person. I didn't want anything emailed or mailed. I wanted to control the chain of custody on this from the very beginning. And I want you to picture what I was genuinely hoping to find. I was hoping for a clerical error, a processing mistake, some form that got attached to the wrong account. Because the alternative, that my business partner, my equal, the woman whose name was on the same door as mine, had walked into a bank and forged my signature to steal from our shared credit line. I really didn't want that to be true. And this is where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. But the document didn't give me a clerical error. It gave me a signature, my name. Same general structure. Someone had clearly studied it, practiced it even. But here's the thing about your own signature. You've made it tens of thousands of times. You know every unconscious habit buried in it. The way the first letter loops, The exact place your pen lifts. The pressure. I looked at this signature and knew within 10 seconds it wasn't mine. It was close, but it wasn't right. Then I checked the date on the authorization form against my calendar. The analyst took 3 weeks. She examined the draw authorization form against 12 authenticated samples of my actual signature, contracts I'd signed over the previous 2 years, each one time-stamped and verified. Her conclusion was unambiguous. The signature on that authorization wasn't mine. It was a simulation. Someone had attempted to replicate it, and while they'd done a competent job at the surface level, the pressure patterns, pen lifts, and stroke sequencing were inconsistent with my authentic samples across every single document tested. She put all of that in writing, under her professional seal. Court admissible. Stay until the end because the finale is absolutely wild. I added it to the folder. I couldn't believe it when I read that report. Even knowing what I already knew, seeing it laid out in clinical documented detail like that still hit differently. Over the next 4 months, I kept building. Got the bank's surveillance footage from the day of the draw. Had to write a formal letter citing potential fraud, but I got it. Requested the bank's internal records on who had presented the authorization in person. Went back through 6 months of company financials looking for other anomalies. I found 2 smaller ones I'd completely missed. Another $3,200 total, same period. Everything went into one organized file. Every piece of evidence dated, labeled, cross-referenced. Clean and airtight. Nobody could have predicted what happened next. And the whole time, I kept showing up to work, every week. Our check-ins, our client calls, our shared Slack channel. Professional. Calm. I gave Kayla absolutely zero reason to think anything had changed. Here's exactly how it went down. I didn't go to the police first. My attorney and I agreed that the most complete outcome, not just legal accountability but real-world consequences, meant working the process in the right sequence. First, the bank. I submitted a formal fraud report with the complete evidentiary package. The forensic handwriting analysis, my time-stamped travel proof, the surveillance records, the authenticated signature comparisons, everything. The bank opened a fraud investigation. Within 3 weeks, they confirmed the draw was unauthorized and began removing it from my personal liability. That $14,000 debt was formally attributed to the fraud, not to me. And this is where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. Second, I filed a complaint with the state licensing board governing Kayla's credential. This is the part most people never think about. And honestly, it's the part that mattered most. Licensing boards take financial fraud seriously because a professional who commits fraud against a business partner is a professional who flat out cannot be trusted with clients. I submitted the same evidence package, full documentation, forensic report, the bank's fraud determination, all of it time-stamped and cross-referenced. The board opened an investigation. Third, and this is the piece I'd prepared most carefully, I contacted the HR department at the firm where Kayla held her part-time consulting contract. Didn't call and accuse her. No angry emails. I sent a formal professional letter, drafted by my attorney, informing them that their contractor was currently the subject of an active bank fraud investigation and a state licensing board inquiry, and that we believe they had a material interest in knowing this, given the nature of their relationship with her. We attached the documentation. The consultancy didn't survive as a partnership, obviously. I bought out her half for a negotiated amount my attorney handled, restructured as a sole proprietorship, and kept the clients. Revenue dipped for about 6 months while I rebuilt things. Then it climbed back above where it had been when there were 2 of us. Some people ask if I regret not confronting her the day I found out. Honestly, not even a little. Every day I waited, I was more prepared and she was less ready. That's not cruelty. That's just math. Some people ask if I feel bad about how it all ended for her, and I'll be honest, I've sat with that. Genuinely. I didn't enjoy any of it. But I also think about the version of this story where I said nothing, absorbed the debt, and kept working beside someone who had looked me in the eyes every single day for 3 months, knowing exactly what she'd done. But the most shocking part is still coming. I couldn't be that person. I just couldn't. She made a choice. I documented it, and reality handled the rest. So here's the question I want to leave you with. And I genuinely mean this. Drop it in the comments. Was there a point where I should have stopped? A line I crossed, or a line I should have drawn sooner? Because I've asked myself that more times than I can count, and I still don't have a clean answer. If this one hit you the way it hit me the first time I sat down with that bank statement, there's more where this came from. You know what to do.